maybe that not y'all know, but the one besides Keish that I always talk about, and every time I see him, I tell him thank you, because it wasn't like we was enemies, or we didn't hang out together. Was 50 Cent, Mr. Curtis Jackson.
Wow.
Whenever I put in for an appellate judgment or an appeal, he made sure that letters was written. He personally signed them, telling, the judge, if you do grant her this release.
All right, let's slow this down, because what happened here wasn't just another celebrity moment. This wasn't messy entertainment or someone chasing attention. What unfolded on that live stream felt heavy, uncomfortable, and painfully real. When Papoose went live, the mood changed instantly. There was no loud intro, no hype, no joking around. He didn't look angry or dramatic. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, but the kind that comes from holding too much inside for too long. You could tell this wasn't planned for shock value. This was someone who had reached a point where staying quiet felt worse than speaking out. As people joined the live, the comments started moving fast. Names popped up. Familiar faces appeared. Remy Ma was there. Fat Joe was there. Others hovered in the background. Viewers tried to make sense of who was watching and why. It felt like a room filling up before something serious was about to be said. And then Papoose started talking. Not yelling. Not ranting. Just speaking. His voice was calm at first, but there was something hollow underneath it. Like he already knew there was no going back from what he was about to say. The kind of calm that comes after someone has already cried all the tears they had. This wasn't gossip spilling out. It felt like truth that had been sitting in his chest, pressing harder every day until it finally broke through. He talked about nights that didn't make sense, about patterns that kept repeating, about situations he tried to explain away because he wanted peace more than conflict. Anyone who has ever loved deeply knows that feeling. You ignore signs because accepting them would mean your whole life might change. Then he said a name that made the comments section freeze. 50 Cent. The energy shifted instantly. Phones lit up. Screen recordings started. People stopped scrolling and leaned in. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. Saying that name changed the weight of everything. But what made it even heavier was how he spoke about it. He didn't accuse wildly. He didn't throw insults. He didn't show receipts. Instead, he described moments. Conversations that crossed lines. A level of closeness that didn't fit the story everyone had been told. He spoke like someone who had already connected the dots and no longer needed to argue with himself about what they meant. And with every sentence, the room felt quieter. He explained that this wasn't about one mistake. It wasn't one bad night. According to him, it was a pattern. Something that had been happening quietly, carefully hidden, while he was still showing up, still being loyal, still protecting the image of his marriage. That's what made it hurt to watch. Because it wasn't anger driving him. It was disappointment and grief. Then the conversation took a darker turn. He said the situation didn't stop at betrayal between adults. He said it touched his family. And the moment he said that, the tone of the live changed completely. This stopped being celebrity talk. This became something serious. His voice cracked. His breathing changed. The control he had been holding on to started slipping away. Not in a dramatic way, but in a human way. The kind that makes you uncomfortable because you know you're watching someone break in real time. People in the comments didn't know what to do. Some begged him to stop. Others begged him to keep going. Everyone felt the weight of the moment, whether they wanted to admit it or not. This wasn't a performance. This was a man realizing his silence hadn't protected anything. It had only allowed the damage to grow. When the live ended, it didn't feel like closure. It felt like the beginning of something irreversible. Clips spread immediately. Pieces of the live were everywhere before he even logged off. People started arguing about what it meant. Some said he was telling the truth. Others said he was unraveling. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. This didn't come out of nowhere. This moment had been building for a long time. And when silence finally breaks like that, it's usually because the damage happened long before anyone was listening. After the live ended, the internet didn't slow down. It exploded. Clips from the stream spread faster than anyone could keep up with. People reposted short moments, rewound sentences, froze frames, and listened closely to every pause in Papoose's voice. Nothing he said felt accidental, and nothing he didn't say went unnoticed either. What stood out most wasn't what he showed, but what he refused to show. He mentioned messages. He hinted at voice notes. He referred to conversations that existed somewhere off-screen, but he didn't play them. That choice changed everything. In a world where people rush to drop receipts, his restraint made the situation feel heavier. It suggested that what he had was real, serious, and painful enough that exposing it fully might cause even more damage than it already had. Instead of convincing people with proof, he let implication do the work. An implication can be more powerful than evidence because it forces the audience to connect the dots themselves. As the hours passed, fans started digging. Old interviews resurfaced. Old photos were re-examined. Casual moments that once felt harmless suddenly looked different under this new lens. People weren't just watching anymore. They were investigating. The conversation shifted from "did something happen?" to "how long had this been happening?" That question changed the entire narrative. Papoose spoke again, this time with less control. His words slowed. His tone softened. He didn't sound like someone trying to win an argument. He sounded like someone trying to understand how his life had quietly slipped into something unrecognizable. He talked about trust, about believing in a version of reality because questioning it would have destroyed everything he worked to protect. He admitted that there were moments he ignored signs, not because he didn't see them, but because he didn't want to believe them. That admission hit home for a lot of people. Because most betrayals don't arrive loudly. They arrive slowly. They hide inside excuses, timing conflicts, and nothing to worry about explanations. And by the time the truth becomes clear, the damage is already done. Then came the part that made many viewers physically uncomfortable. He said the doubt didn't stay between adults. He said it reached his family. He didn't speak in detail. He didn't need to. The weight of what he implied was enough to silence the chat. This wasn't about embarrassment anymore. This was about identity, trust, and emotional safety. His voice cracked again, not in rage but in heartbreak. He spoke about loving someone fully and realizing that love may not have been returned in the same way. About standing in a marriage that looked solid to the public while quietly questioning its foundation behind closed doors. At that point, no one was watching for entertainment. They were watching because it felt wrong to look away. As clips continued circulating, the internet split into two clear sides. One side believed this was a long overdue truth finally coming out. They saw a man who had been patient, loyal, and silent until silence became unbearable. They believed every word came from years of emotional pressure finally boiling over. The other side saw a breakdown. They believed he was overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, and collapsing under stress. They worried about the impact of airing something so personal in such a public way. Both sides agreed on one thing. This pain looked real. What made everything more intense was the lack of an immediate response from the people mentioned. No quick denials. No explanations. No clarifications. Just silence. And silence, in moments like this, becomes its own kind of statement. People began interpreting that silence in different ways. Some saw it as guilt. Others saw it as strategy. But regardless of the reason, the absence of a response allowed speculation to grow unchecked. By the next morning, the language around the story had changed. Shock turned into analysis. Analysis turned into timeline building. Online panels debated whether this was a calculated exposure or the emotional breaking point of someone who had reached his limit. But one interpretation kept gaining traction. This wasn't about revenge. It was about exhaustion. Exhaustion from carrying unanswered questions. Exhaustion from protecting an image that no longer felt honest. Exhaustion from believing silence would save something that was already broken. As the dust settled, it became clear that this moment wasn't designed to end quickly. This wasn't a viral clip that would disappear in a few days. It was a fracture, and fractures don't heal just because people stop talking about them. Careers would continue. Music would drop. Public appearances would resume. But something had changed permanently. Once a truth like that is spoken out loud, it can't be pulled back. And once doubt enters a space that was built on trust, nothing ever feels the same again. This wasn't the verdict. But the trial had started.